Good day, everyone. Welcome to today's virtual lesson on Teaching Technique 15 without apology. I am Angelo John Ebal, one of your instructors for this session. I hope you are all ready to dive into some exciting learning. Technique 15 without apology is one of the techniques under setting high academic expectations. In the book Teach Like a Champion 2.0 by Doug Lemove, Technique 15 focuses on improving teaching methods to increase student engagement and academic success. The without apology technique encourages teachers to confidently present rigorous content without apologizing for its difficulty, perceived lack of relevance, or students' ability to grasp it. Before everything else, let us have a look at our learning objectives. Familiarize common ways in which teacher unknowingly apologize. Explain why presenting content without apology enhances students' motivation and engagement in the classroom. And later on, we will identify what type of apologizing statement is being presented. Sometimes teachers may find themselves unintentionally apologizing for teaching a less than a popular topic. This is most often done in one of these common ways. Number one, assuming something will be boring. If teachers assume that something will be boring, it might reflect on his or her quality of teaching. Student might also adopt a fixed mindset of viewing something as dull or unimportant. Here's an example of an apologizing statement under this scenario. You may not find this at all interesting. This statement introduces a fixed mindset to students, which is a negative. Now, to reframe this into a positive, this gets more and more exciting as you come to understand it better. It is more a positive way of rephrasing this one without apologizing and with using the use of technique 15. Next is, before everything else, we have a scenario here under assuming that something will be boring. During a math lesson on fractions, the assumption is student always find fractions boring and hard to understand. The typical approach without technique 15, I know fractions aren't anyone's favorite, but let's just try to get through this, okay? This one is a negative statement that introduces a fixed mindset to a students that may cause disinterest or an important lesson. To reframe this, using technique 15, fractions might seem tricky at first, but they are actually everywhere in our lives. Whether it's splitting a pizza, baking, or even managing time. Framing fractions as practical skills helps students see its value. Next is blaming the content. It usually happens when teachers express to students that the material they are about to teach is difficult, boring, or irrelevant. This can create a negative mindset in students, making them more likely to approach the content with disinterest. An example for this one is, this material is on the test, so we'll have to learn it. Or they say we have to read this. This statement is already blaming the content. Now, to reframe this to a more positive statement, we are going to study this because it's an important building block for the things you do throughout your life as a student. Framing the problems as a valuable challenge rather than a tedious task can encourage students to engage more fully and develop resilience in problem solving. Now, our scenario here is on complex math lesson again. I know these math problems are confusing and really tedious, but we have to get through them because they are on a test. Teacher here is already blaming the difficulty of the math problems. Now, to reframe this, these math problems might be challenging, but solving them helps us build problem solving skills that we will use again and again Let's work through them step by step. I'll be here to help along the way. Now, next is the substituting difficult materials with a more accessible alternative. It is a strategy of some teachers that they use this when they fear that the students may not grasp complex concepts. However, there are some significant drawbacks if done regularly. An example of this might be replacing the study of a difficult piece of literature with a showing of modern film version instead. Yes, it is true that film version is more accessible, however, only initially than the difficult piece of literature. However, it is diluting the content of what are supposed to learn or to be delivered by the teacher. Now, why should we avoid apologies? First, it undermines high expectations. It lowers student expectations. Students may start to believe that it is actually boring before they even given it a chance. Next, it reduces student engagement. Students may disengage if they believe that they are capable of mastering complex concepts. Lastly, it limits student growth, which can inadvertently reinforce a fixed mindset. Now let's test your understanding with a few quick evaluation questions. I'll ask the questions and I want you to pause the video to think about your answers. I want you to identify which type of common ways are being presented in the following apologizing statements. I'll give you 5 seconds. You may pause your screen for the first item. The answer this here is blaming the content. For the second item, this statement is substituting difficult material with a more accessible alternative. For the third statement, it is assuming something will be boring. For the fourth statement, this statement is about substituting difficult material with a more accessible alternative. And for the last, it is blaming the content. Now let's have our key takeaways for this topic or lesson. Without apology, set high expectations for learning. Teachers should use a positive, purposeful language to present difficult content. Teachers should believe in students' ability to understand and engage with challenging material. Never preface a lesson by assuming or implying that it's boring, too hard, or confusing. Now I'll be leaving you a question to ponder as we end this video presentation or virtual lesson. As you think about today's lesson, where do you see opportunities to apply this knowledge in your own life? That's all for today. Thank you for listening.